Hello everyone, this is Remlays from 40k Theories, and welcome to the June 2024 edition of the Patreon Q&A sessions. As always, if you would like your questions answered, then click the link in the video description below and help support the channel by becoming a patron. Now, let's jump into the questions. Brandon A asks, yet a third question about a Champion of Malice, because of course it is. I jest, but let's see. It sounds to me like this champion would be more like Doomguy, attacking demons and traitors, but leaving Imperials alone. That's not a question, Brandon, that's a statement. But no, he wouldn't leave Imperials alone. He would basically be completely indiscriminate in who he attacks, regardless of their Imperial, Chaos, or whatever. He would just kill, whatever in his path. Because he would be embodying the metaphysical concept of chaos as, chaos, essentially, the opposite of order, indiscriminate violence and bloodshed, unpredictability more than anything else. So no, he'd effectively go for whatever in his path, essentially. He'd be very cornate in that regard, but again, it just doesn't matter what it is, because, hey, it might even go for himself. You never know. We know that the Adeptus Administratum has the Minotaur's chapter under their thumb, so would the Adeptus Mechanicus have a chapter under their sway as well, but in secret? A chapter under the sway of the Adeptus Mechanicus? What, you mean like the Iron Hands? Because the Iron Hands have a very, very, very close link to the Adeptus Mechanicus, It's almost as if they're being controlled by them. Ponder that. Is it possible for some elements of our modern day religious figures to still be fighting for humanity somewhere in the warp? Well, there's the implication that Satan still exists, albeit in a weakened stage, because, Shaitan fought Magnus on the world of Morningstar. Subtle, Graham. I'm not sure, because considering that a lot of humanity's religious beliefs had effectively been purged, all the way back to the Terran Unification Wars, considering that no one would have been worshipping any of these deities or, figures for over 10,000 years, it's possible they would have been weakened because of that, and therefore, been left as prey for the other, denizens of the warp, so, probably not, no. Pentadeuce asks, are the Adeptus Mechanicus able to make copies of STCs that they find, or are they totally unique? I'm fairly sure they're unique because there do exist certain weapons and vehicles and the like that can only be constructed on certain Forge Worlds, with the implication being that these Forge Worlds have these sole functioning STCs, for those weapons and vehicles. So because of that, to my knowledge, no, they're not able to be copied. Which faction do you think needs new or reworked models the most? The Eldari. Mainly because they're still using the Warp Spiders from 1994. The Warp Spider models that are still available on Games Workshop's website are 30 years old. Come on guys, give us some new Warp Spiders. We've been begging for this for 3 or 4 editions now, come on. Griffin of Might asks, which pro wrestling theme would you give to each of the Primarchs and why? Funnily enough, I did an entire Twitter thread on this subject years ago, I think it was back in 2022. But some of the examples they came up with was to give Angron World Eater by Bolt Thrower, an obvious choice, I know. Magnus the Red got the Crimson King by the Contradiction, another obvious choice. Lorgar had Lex Talionis by Rotting Christ. Corvus Corax had The End of Everything by Stereo Mud. Leman Russ had Blood on the Ice by Bathory, and Lionel Johnson had Lost in the Forest by Spellbound, just to name a few. I'm not going into every single one because I didn't come up with examples for every single one back then, so yeah, there you go. I'll put a link to the Twitter thread in the video description for those curious. Are there any video games coming up that you're excited for? Not just 40k games, but those too, obviously. Not really, no. Actually, no, tell a lie. I am excited for the Forges of Corruption DLC for Boltgun, which I believe is actually out now, so I need to get a hold of a copy of that, but aside from that, no, none really come to mind, sorry. Zero Hits asks, within the leagues of Votann, we have the Votann themselves and the Ironkin. Do you think their existence lessens the mystery and horror of the Tales of the Men of Iron's rebellion? No, I don't actually. In fact, if anything, the existence of the Ironkin as effectively loyalist to Men of Iron actually adds an interesting wrinkle to the entire Men of Iron cybernetic revolt dynamic thing. Because you then have to wonder, if the Men of Iron rebelled against humanity, why did the Ironkin remain as loyalists? That's something you need to think about, which I think could be a very good direction to go in from a storyline perspective, so I think it actually adds an interesting detail, you know, and a little bit of much needed depth to the entire cybernetic revolt. And finally, Richard Martin asks, what is your least favourite trend with Modern 40k? The price hikes. Everything is ridiculously expensive these days, and it's gone to the point where it's outright taking the piss now. I mean, I know Games Workshop was never exactly, you know, what would be called cheap or affordable. I know it's an expensive hobby by trade, but come on guys, like 37 quid for a codex, or £21.50 for a plastic model, a single plastic model that's not even a vehicle or like a special character, just a regular character who is available in the Blackstone Fortress box set. Yes, I'm talking about Pius Vaughn here, when the entire box set was like just over 100 quid and you got like a shit ton more. No, that's my least favourite trend right there. What is your favourite trend with Modern 40k? I appreciate the fact that they're doing a lot of callbacks to older lore, like with the Dawn of Fire series doing callbacks to the 3rd edition Cult of the Star Child, you know, thing from the 3rd edition rulebook. I appreciate that, and I appreciate how in like the 8th edition Death Guard Codex we actually got a reference to Foulspawn, who was a demon prince who was only mentioned in the 2nd edition Chaos Codex, so I appreciate that. What is the League of Votan's relationship with the Imperium? To my knowledge, they are officially allies, because the Votan, despite being, you know, abhumans, they are still technically human, and I think the Imperium, you know, tolerates them purely because of that, you know, and the fact they got access to, you know, high-grade, you know, human technology and stuff like that. So, to my knowledge, they are in a delicate alliance, but they are very standoffish because, you know, the Imperium refers to them as squats, and the squats view that as a slur, and they don't like that, but they both know there are bigger threats in the galaxy out there, you know, for both humanity and the Votan as a whole, you know, like the Nids, the Orcs, etc. So, yeah, as far as I'm aware, their relationship is that they are officially allies. And that concludes this edition of the Patreon Q&A sessions. As always, if you would like your questions answered, then click the link in the video description below and help support the channel by becoming a patron. Until next time, this has been Remlay from 40k Theories, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye!